What is up, YouTube? Jason here. And as you can tell by the title of today's video, it's a little different than the ones I normally produce. I'm not discussing a book or Crime and Punishment. I will be discussing my relationship to New York City and slash my infatuation with it, and describing my infatuation, and also detailing sort of my history traveling there. So tomorrow, Saturday the 26th, July 26th, that is, I will be getting up around 7 a.m., traveling from, my home in Western Maryland to Baltimore, where I will hop on a bus, and the bus will then take me 3 hours into Manhattan Port Authority, and then I'll have to make my way to Chinatown to my hotel. I stay in Chinatown because that's quite literally the cheapest place I can find in Manhattan besides the, Upper West Side YMCA. And so, but I've stayed a few different places. I've mainly stayed in Manhattan, in Chinatown, also at Pod Hotels, the Pod Times Square, the Pod 39th, the Pod 50 whatever. I've stayed at some hotel in Red Hook in Brooklyn. But so I went to New York City once as a child. And as a child, I went there with my mother, and we took a train from Baltimore to Madison Square Garden. But we stayed in Jersey once we got there and got settled. And I barely saw the city except for that first day there. And I only saw glimpses, even main tourist attractions. I only saw glimpses and glances of, saw a passing glance of Times Square. The most time that I spent there, with my feet on the cement and my eyes actually taking in what was before me, was when we initially arrived and I got off the train and we stood at Madison Square Garden waiting on our ride to pick us up. And we stood there for about 15-20 minutes. And, I was young, so I'm 29 now. This was, I guess 20 plus years ago probably, or about 20 years ago maybe. And what I saw was not only the sheer verticality of the city, skyscrapers, and just a line of buildings of all different architectural designs and different architectural inspiration that made up these buildings and these skyscrapers. But I also saw a confluence of people, of multiculturalism, the likes of which I had never witnessed before. People listening to, it was like an iPod minis back then, or whatever, iPod nanos, and crossing in the crosswalk, and taxis and cars all sort of jockeying for position. And I was inspired. It was very much inspiring. My life was changed at that moment. And I think from that point on, just because it's a sheer well of inspiration, you can't go to New York City and not live in the moment. Because if you're walking down the street with your head in the clouds, you're liable to be shot, stabbed, something stolen from you, pickpocketed. Not necessarily not to give the city a bad rap, because I've never had issues of the like. And I mean, not to jinx myself, knock on wood. I'll go knock on this tree here. I'm not superstitious, or I'm educated quite enough not to be superstitious, yet I am superstitious, right? Notes from underground. Anyway, but there's just so many people. It has nothing to do with ethnicity or anything like that, but there's just so many people. Of course, you have people that are amazing people, but then you're also going to have murderers. I mean, it's just so many people that's just fact of it. Anywhere that you have a high concentration of people in such a tight area, such a small area, even though New York City's feels gigantic, you're going to have an array of different personalities and different, all converging. The good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly. And that's what I love. I love the contrast. Any adjective that you select to describe the city is an accurate selection, because the city is quite literally everything. As I already mentioned, it's beautiful and it's also ugly. It's serious, but it's also satirical. It's sullen, but it's also joyous and happy, and it's just a magnificent city. So anyway, and also, if you can't afford to travel to China, if you can't afford to travel to Russia, if you can't afford to travel to Greece, to Latin America, you can travel to New York City and get a taste of the culture that would otherwise be in these areas, because you just have such dense multiculturalism. You can go to Chinatown and hear people speaking Chinese, Mandarin. You can go to Little Ukraine and perhaps hear Ukrainian and different Eastern European dialects and Russian. You can go to Queens, the world's borough, and hear Spanish. You'll hear Spanish throughout the city. You can go into a pizza shop and hear 2 different languages spoken by the staff, 3 different. You gotta yell out your order. You gotta do it quick. Everything is forcing you to live in the moment and be present. And there's a certain degree to which the city makes you suffer. But guess what? It's a shared experience. It's a shared type of suffering, like, trudging down the subway steps in 90-degree heat, where it's probably 110 degrees down in the subway. It's sweltering. Everyone is drenched in sweat. You climb into a crowded, subway car, and you're packed shoulder to shoulder, and everyone just has this sort of look of anguish and disgust on their face. And you pray to God that the subway has air conditioning. Usually they do. It's cooler on the subway, but still just the close proximity is enough to, feel like the heat of, it's as if you traveled to the center of the world, the center of Earth, and you're, experiencing that level of heat. Dante's Inferno. It's quite magnificent. And anyway, since I went there back in, December of 2021, and that was the first time I traveled there since a child. And counting that trip, I've been there a total, excluding the trip I went on as a child and all the trips I've been on to New York City as an adult, I've been there a total of 9 times. This will be my 10th trip. Over the course of my lifetime, it'll be my 11th, if you count the time I was there as a child. But I went there back in 2021, December of 2021, maybe December 16th or something like that, is when I got there. And instead of taking the bus, I drove into the city. That was the first several times I went to New York City. I drove there, and you go into Jersey, and you go across the Pulaski Skyway, and you see the panorama view of Manhattan, this panoramic view of Manhattan. And, and in 20 minutes, give or take, or 30 minutes, you're going to be in the heart of it. You're going to be immersed in the artery of, Manhattan, wherever you are. And you are just another face in the crowd at that point. But it's just a very humbling experience. If you ever think about just people perceiving you and you suffer from a certain level of social anxiety, take a trip to New York and you'll realize how insignificant you are in regards, apropos to life and apropos to life. And just like the human population. You sort of realize, well, there's 8 billion people on this planet, and I'm one, I wouldn't say insignificant, but you're one soul, and everybody is sort of their own main character. And sure, you do things that are embarrassing, but everybody does, and it just sort of, it adds to the consolation that it's we all make mistakes. And it's sort of just reassuring. It's a reassuring pat on the back, or a reassuring, whisper in the ear that everybody fucks up. And, there are always new people out there to meet. You can't possibly meet everybody on this planet, but you can always be meeting new people. And I'm going to take a seat as I continue to ramble on. So yeah, I went there back December of 21, drove there, parked in Manhattan at a parking garage after I made it over the Pulaski Skyway and through the Holland Tunnel. And I stayed at the Pod, Midtown, I believe on the east side. I know it's 50 something. I don't know if it's 57. It might be the Pod 57 or something. The Pod on 57th. First hotel I ever stayed at where you share a bathroom. And maybe that's not your idea of a enjoyable shared experience, right? But it's a shared experience nonetheless. And that's just sort of a part of traveling to New York if you want to do it, if you want to go on an economically viable trip and save money, then yeah, you can get a room with a shared bathroom. But anyway, so yeah, and I loved it so much that time. I was afraid to take the subway. I was terrified. I didn't take the subway my first 2 times in New York. And the one day, I swear to God, I took over 40,000 steps, walked 20-some miles, just up and down Manhattan and over to Brooklyn, across the Williamsburg Bridge. And yeah, that's another thing. You can travel to Brooklyn and see the Jewish population in Williamsburg and in Park Slope and wherever you go. I'm not sure if Park Slope is indicative of Jewish, as a high predominantly Jewish population, but I know parts of Brooklyn does for sure. Yeah, it's just it's quite incredible. Now, if it becomes overwhelming and overstimulating, all you do is you duck inside somewhere, and you're sort of out of the chaos of it all, and the chaos sort of halts for a moment, and you can take a breath. You can also travel to the one of many parks and just take a seat, and you sort of so they have little alcoves, so to speak, and there goes a geese, and that you can duck into, and you can momentarily forego the chaos. But I would say the chaos is very much a part of it, and the chaos is liberating in a sense. for reasons I already discussed. And so, yeah, I loved it so much that after the first trip, I went back 2 weeks later. And all I did yet again was walk and bike around. Maybe that second time there, I took the subway one time. And I took it randomly. Didn't even have a destination in mind. I just wanted to ride the subway to see what it was like. Now, of course, so then I went back again in the spring. That was my third trip there as an adult. I went June, July, and August of that summer, the summer of 2022. And in July, I went there with a friend, my friend who lives in South Carolina now. He's originally from Maryland, my friend Hunter. And he met me there. He flew in. And the great thing about that trip, I can't tell you how ecstatic I was to have another person I knew in this city that I care so deeply about. And so I was so excited, by the time we took a taxi to Washington Square Park, that was the first thing we did. We checked into our hotel. I had already been there for 2 days. I stayed 2 days in Chinatown in July of 2022. And then I checked out and I went and met him somewhere around Hudson Yards. And we went and checked in. And we immediately went to Washington Square Park. And I think our intention after that was to go to Katz's Deli. And that was my first and only time I've been to Katz's Deli. And the great thing about being there with another person was I did things and ventured out a little more and did things that I normally wouldn't do, such as taking the subway a lot. And that sort of made me more comfortable with riding the subway and learning that I could just track it on Google, and it's not like you have to have a mental map of the subway to travel it and to navigate it. And that may be self-explanatory, but it's certainly when you're there by yourself, and I'm going again to New York City by myself. All of these trips I've went by myself, except for one. And so, yeah, when you're there by yourself, you have to watch your back. I mean, I think it's incredible to go by yourself, just because you're going to take in, instead of being conversing and fixed with another, your attention fixed on another person, and if you're like me, you're sort of emotionally in tune to their wants and needs, and their desires of what to do. And, you're bouncing that off your own desires and trying to compromise on things to do. And, yeah, you're just checking up on them. I'm just saying it takes out when you go by yourself, it removes all that mental contemplation that you would normally go through when you're there with another person. And that sort of frees you and allows you to take in the city from a different vantage point, because you're just seeing a lot more of it. And anyway, so yeah, me and him, we went to a Yankees game, and I've been there several times. The last time I went, but as I've went more, it's sort of puttered out. The frequency at which I go. It's also expensive as hell. When I went back then, I was in community college, and community college is obviously a lot cheaper than going to university. And I've paid majority of my way, with the exception of scholarships and grants. Now I have graduated, so I'm not paying for tuition anymore at this very moment. While I decide on what I'm going to do next in terms of grad school or whatever. Because all I have is a bachelor's in English. I can't actually land a full-time teaching job with just my bachelor's in English. I need to go through an MAT or decide if I want to go for an MFA or get even a PhD. I'm not entirely sure. PhD sounds like a long shot. and not much bang for your buck, right, that you get out of there, or that you get out of it. This country, it certainly doesn't, it undervalues education and the importance of education. Education has transformed my life. And a liberal education is, I feel like, a necessary one. You should be somewhat well-rounded and somewhat well-informed so you can make decisions. And also, by experiencing a liberal education, you determine what your likes and dislikes are. So by the time that you get to college, you can focus on what your major is. Sure, maybe in college, instead of taking all these prereqs, it could get a little more interest-focused quicker, but it's just the way it is. Everybody's got to get paid, and I understand that. So as a teacher, I sympathize with a liberal education, or like the idea of it. Anyway, I keep going off on, keep digressing as I pace back and forth on the rocks here right next to the creek. This is sort of my spot to ruminate and make videos. It's not far from, this is a path right behind my where I went to community college, so I return here quite a lot, and it's only a few minutes from my house, so I love it here. It's rather beautiful. Anyway, I don't even know where I was on with about New York City. But yeah, I went there with my friend Hunter, and got used to riding the subway, saw a little more of the city, talked to more people, I think, like more locals and just more travelers than I ever had in any trip, I believe. Also, it just, it was a unique experience going there with somebody, or meeting somebody there, somebody that you knew, a friend. And after that, I was saying, it sort of puttered out the frequency at which I go there. And since it's puttered out, I've only been going there, like last year I only went there once. This year I'll probably only go there once, unless I go again in December or the winter or the fall. Now that I'm out of school, that might be an option. But it, of course, costs money. Even if you stay cheap, even if you go for 2 or 3 days, everything costs money. And the taxes in New York City, the taxes in the city are outrageous. With that being said, I think it's totally worth it. My home in Western Maryland is only 5 hours from the city. So to me, it's like a no-brainer that I travel there. I couldn't decide on whether to go to the beach in North Carolina. I was considering going to the Outer Banks or going back to New York City. And I kept going back and forth, and I booked several different places. I even considered going to Miami. And I booked something for Miami, canceled it. Booked something for Avon, North Carolina, canceled it. And I've never been to either of those places. And it could be also like just going to where I know, because the fear of the unknown, even though there's a lot of that in New York City, and that still exists, even though I have traveled there many times to a certain degree, because I simply haven't seen everything. And even if I went there another 20 times, you still could not possibly, there would always be new things that you could see. But yeah, I decided on New York City because since I have began making videos again, I want to share this experience on my channel. I want to share this experience and share my love for New York City with YouTube, right, and whoever watches my videos. And you can expect some book reviews Perhaps I have Crime and Punishment in my back pocket right now, paperback in the back pocket, although I'm not going around cheating on my wife. If you know the reference to that, that's Junot Diaz, Junot Diaz, the professor, or one-time professor at, what's that college? I forget. Damn it. It's a prestigious university. Oh, shit. Anyway, yeah, that's beside the point. MIT, right, MIT. See, Dr. Herzen tubing again. And he has a story, what was it? Fiesta 1980. And his dad is like a serial cheater. Or he just is sleeping with one Puerto Rican woman, but he's cheating on his wife, on Junior's mother, with this Puerto Rican woman. But in the story, he says, my father was an avid reader, couldn't go around cheating without a paper book in his back pocket. And I love that line. So yeah, you can expect, certainly, more videos about Crime and Punishment from New York City. Maybe, it would certainly be good to pair literature that is intertwined with the city, that was inspired or is set in New York City, that goes with the city, like Walt Whitman's Crossing the Brooklyn Ferry. If I could do something by Langston Hughes or Zora Neale Hurston, or something on the Harlem Renaissance, that would, James Baldwin, who wrote Ralph Ellison. I think Ralph Ellison was, I'm not entirely sure, the author of The Invisible Man. But yeah, certainly something on the Harlem Renaissance, I think would be very fitting. But I also may make videos on just utter nonsense, different, about my trip, about different food I eat and places I go while I'm there, and also something about the Williamsburg Bridge, my favorite bridge. I don't know that I've walked across every bridge, but that is I don't know if that bridge, I feel like that bridge is closer to me, to where I stay, than the Brooklyn Bridge. But I've walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, I've walked across the Williamsburg Bridge, and I've walked across the Manhattan Bridge. And I can tell you, the Manhattan Bridge is pretty close too, I think. Well, honestly, I can't remember. But the Williamsburg Bridge, there's something special about the Williamsburg Bridge. You're sort of encaged, and my professor, my creative writing nonfiction professor, he was born in Brooklyn, or raised, I believe born in Brooklyn, raised in somewhere in New York City, and he's a local, or was a local. He's a denizen of New York, right? And so that was pretty amazing that he got to judge some of my writing about the city. And he told me, that I captured the city's essence quite well. It didn't seem as though I was just a new transplant, sort of like assuming this this false sense of being a local, or whatever, however, I didn't seem like some poser, I guess, right? Whatever, I'm not a local, and perhaps there's too much stigma around that, but that's just sort of the way of New York City, and New Yorkers, they're gonna just find something to gripe about. Because there's a million things to gripe about when you're there. And also when there are hundreds of thousands of tourists on your front stoop, like crossing your front door every day, and you know, they're taking, you know, advantage of, or they're just noise pollution and being a bit of a nuisance, really, right there in your front and backyard. You know, that would get annoying. Of course, you're going to curse them up and down the block from time to time. Okay? You know, this is your home, while this is just their pot to piss in for a few days. And then go back to their, you know, sleepy little town elsewhere or overseas or wherever. So I can certainly empathize with that. Now, of course, if you live in a different borough other than Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, you know, the forgotten borough, Staten Island, then, yeah, you're not going to see as many tourists, but whatever. Anyway, so this is a 30-minute video. Hopefully I'm hinting at what it is I like about the city. I think there's a whole, like, there's some philosophy to it or something. It very much feels like confronting the absurd head on, confronting chaos head on and riding its wave all the way through, and being changed through the course of it. Never to be quite the same person again, trip after trip, but to be slightly altered by each trip. And the city sort of leaves just that remarkable imprint on you. And I think that's rather profound. Even if it does make you a little more callous, and it teaches you to drive a bit like an asshole, maybe that's a good thing. Especially for me, somebody who's reserved and a bit shy and whatnot. I could afford a couple calluses on my hands, I guess, metaphorically, so to speak. Anything else? Yeah, so the frequency at which I went there has sort of puttered out, but I still find myself time and time again going back there, as I will be tomorrow. And I just want to tell you to expect videos from me from New York City on an array of different things, potentially. I'm certainly excited to try and grab pizza there, maybe grab sushi there, and get coffee there, even though I oftentimes just go to fucking Starbucks, you know, me sticking with what I know. I like Starbucks, okay? And there's one pretty close. I could go to a local, like, coffee place, which I have, but yeah, I usually eat local and also at chain spots, and that's totally fine. But yeah, just different videos, perhaps on the food, just different landmarks, and also literature from New York City over the next couple coming days. And yeah, thanks for watching. Perhaps I'll get more into do an in-depth video if I haven't already explained and over-explained myself on explained like my infatuation and my addiction with going to New York City, but my obsession. But I feel as though my obsession is justified in this case. And yeah, just be on the lookout for videos to come from, you know, the melting pot of the world. So I'll see you guys there.